Hi, everybody. This is John Wick with Real Estate Decoded. I had a great interview today with Greg Glazer he's a real estate attorney in California, and he does especially works with for sale by owners as part of his business. So I wanted to talk to him. We're going to talk about him and his business, and then later on we're going to talk about the Northern California real estate market and end up with some really nitty gritty geeky stuff about the contracts in California. So if you're moving into California, the contracts are going to be a little bit different, and also it's not just the contracts, it's the customs. What's customary can change a lot from state to state, and I think in California they change a lot from county to county. So we'll
Right.
end up with talking about that. Sorry, great. Greg, so introduce yourself. Tell me about the great stuff you're doing, the unique stuff you're doing.
You bet. Yeah, John, I'm really happy to have this interview here. I'm doing real estate law, and that has included for sale by owner, helping people buy and sell real estate without a realtor. I started off doing general real estate law, and that included advising brokers, real estate agents, buyers, sellers. Occasionally, I get calls from title companies with questions, and I realized I was assisting everyone with the process, and I should start handling the process myself instead of just doing little pieces, putting it all together. And that's how I got involved with for sale by owner, or FSBO.
Great. So let's talk about the for sale by owners, the FSBOs. So when do they call you when they're thinking about it, or they have a contract? How do they
You bet. You
decide
bet.
to hey, I need a lawyer, I need to
Yeah.
oh,
I get calls all throughout the process. I get calls from people just thinking about selling their home. Sometimes I get calls from a buyer and seller who've already found each other, and now they just want someone to document the transaction. I sometimes get brought into a transaction where they already have a contract, but then they have questions that come up, and so I help all throughout the whole process. And I found that that's the best approach. And I get calls from both buyer and seller as well. My most frequent calls are probably from sellers who have found a buyer and are looking to have the property transaction documented, and then to have their disclosure package prepared by an attorney. And I think that there is something sort of intimidating about the disclosure process itself that an attorney can help bring clarity to and a lot of confidence. And that's where I've had success in this approach. Um, Fortunately, the process of buying and selling real estate in California is very straightforward. But if you've never done it before, or if you're not a professional doing it, it can seem encoded, or it can seem very challenging. Lots of different terminology, unclear questions, and so there's no great, frequently asked questions portal out there where you can get all of your answers. And so that's why people come to me. They come to me with general questions, um, and then some specific questions in their transactions. And I really enjoy answering them and providing the confidence they need to proceed to meet their goals.
so you have some pretty good questions on your website. Why don't you talk about your website a bit?
Yeah, sure. I have my main website is gregglazer.com, but I also have a blog that has really taken off. I didn't expect it to, but it did, and it's called NorCal FSBO. And the blog covers some nuanced things like how to read a title report, but the thing that is getting the most attention is my really helpful checklist or list of steps. The way that I summarize what everybody does. I find that that's what people want to know. Buyers and sellers want to know. They want to know what others are doing. They want to know what's standard. And I've done so many for sale by owner transactions, helping buyers and sellers, that's where I can really shine in my services, is to provide people with clarity, with clear information and confidence to know that the course of action that they do decide to take is going to work for them to meet their goals.
So when somebody comes in, let's say a buyer and seller, they've worked out. They've normally worked out the details. They got price and everything figured out. They just want somebody to write it up. And do you end
Yeah.
up representing both parties or one party? How do you handle the agency issue?
Yes, I only represent both parties where they are family or really close friends, and but for the most part, I'll just represent either the seller or the buyer. Whoever contacts me first is the lucky one who gets to hire me.
Hmm.
And um, the people who call, when a client calls, a potential client calls, it always starts off with a free consultation for whatever part of the process that they're in. So
Oh, okay. Well, a free consultation at the beginning. Okay, cool.
yeah, exactly. And if they if they're just thinking about listing their home, then they have just a price in mind, and then they'll have questions about the disclosures and so forth. But if they already have found a buyer, yeah, usually they will have negotiated a few things, like when they'd like to close escrow, but they generally won't have already discussed the nitty gritty, like how are closing costs going to be allocated, which disclosures should be included, which title company should they use. So that's where I come in to provide the clarity on what's standard and what are the options. And so so the process always begins with just talking with people, having a nice friendly conversation about their goals, and being available to answer questions. That's one of the key things in a for sale by owner law, in a for sale by owner practice for an attorney, is that you have to be available to people, and have the answers to their questions, which is why it's so key not to just use a regular real estate attorney, but someone who has done lots of for sale by owner transactions, because it's a specialty kind of area in the law. And that's one of the things that I found that I've received a lot of great feedback from clients, that I've been able to answer their questions, that I have that knowledge in the area. And as you know, working in the field that you work in, and you are tracking Zillow charts and providing great information to buyers and sellers about how to value their home. And what's been your experience with that?
With getting people to value homes, it's the number one question. It's particularly with sellers, they tend to have an too high of an opinion of the value of their home, and then sometimes I end up being the bad guy. Say, the numbers really show it's probably not this high. And so then they come in and say, well, let's just try it really high, and say, well, there's a cost to that, because if you're going to sell it for above market or the high end of market, really, if you can sell it in the first week or two, that's when you're going to get above or the high end of market value. So if you price it really high, the odds of getting the high end of market value are probably decreased. Anyway, so there's a whole thing, and I'm an economist by training, a geeky numbers guy, and for me it's like, well, look at the numbers, they just show it. It's really plain to me, but it's hard to communicate that all the details of the pricing of the home is a big issue. I'm sure for a FSBO it's got to be really true too, the same issue.
Yeah. With FSBOs, the client's in control, so they'll set the price of their home, and if they have time on their side to wait for the right buyer to come along, then that's great. Because if you're patient and you don't mind being in control of the process and giving it time to find that right buyer, because all it takes is one. You only have one house to sell. It just takes the right buyer. But yeah, pricing the home is a really key aspect to any for sale by owner transaction. And I think one of the things that draws buyers and sellers to the process is that they are in control, that they are not going to be pressured by their professional assisting them, their real estate agent, to go high or to go low. And that's a key thing that I also agree with when it comes to the for sale by owner, is not pressuring clients one way or the other to list high or list low or anything like that. I just like to trust the clients. In fact, that's one of the things that I learned in law school, which is that the market value of a home is what a reasonable seller is willing to sell to a reasonable buyer, and the seller's opinion on the market value of their home is actually admissible in court as evidence, because it is, as some consider it, the best evidence.
Wow, that's interesting. So what would be on the for sale by owner, who would be the ideal client, meaning the most successful? Is there a personality or a situation that a seller has, or he's more likely to be successful selling for sale by owner using an attorney?
Yeah, that's a great question. I find that people who, for a seller who has general confidence, general familiarity with real estate terminology, that could be really helpful. Sometimes I'll have a seller who doesn't have that, and so they'll want to refer a lot of questions to me, or even refer buyers directly to me to answer their questions, and I'm fine with that, stepping in there and just being a coordinator of the transaction in a sense, being a liaison to facilitate the client's goals. But yeah, it's generally going to be a confident person. Some of the questions that I get asked about are how to show a for sale by owner home. The real estate agents are really skilled with this. They will They'll screen people who come in. They know how to show a home. They know how to not just talk about the details of the home, but also talk about what the potential buyers are interested in the home about. It's kind of creating a relationship in that sense. And so some people just really get it, and some need a little bit of work to get there, but they find their way through the process. So generally, if I would just say that there's one quality you would look for in a person who has who pursues for sale by owner is confidence. And if they lack some confidence, they can make up for that by hiring a professional like myself.
Cool. So we were just saying, what's the ideal client? Well, people are probably thinking, where does he work? So where do your clients come from? What's your area?
Yeah. I work all over Northern California and occasionally in Southern California too. I work a lot in the Bay Area, Santa Clara County, Contra Costa County, work up in the North Bay, and I enjoy it. Yeah.
So then people, even if somebody's from LA, they can, you don't see face to face most of your clients. You're communicating by phone and I guess email and faxes are dead, and so then they tell you what you want. Okay, this is the contract price. This is what we agreed on. Can you write it all up? Then you send it, say it's the seller. The seller gets it, sends it to the buyer. The buyer may have their attorney review it, or maybe they don't.
Yeah. What I do is I walk people through the whole process. So I intake with a initial client consultation. It's always by phone. Some people will just contact me by email initially, and we'll set up a phone conference to talk. And then I answer their questions, walk them through what the process is. We'll email them over sometimes a checklist, a list of steps, which we'll go through together to meet their goals and close escrow, and just help them all along the way. I tell them, keep my email handy, keep my cell phone handy. I'll just be with you the whole way to meet this.
Holy mackerel, that's nice.
Yeah, it's great. And I have a flat fee structure, so clients don't feel like they have to worry about attorney hours or anything like that. It's just covered. Wow. And that's great because you want to have a good dialogue with clients. You want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming to you and answering even the littlest questions. There's no question that is too small or insignificant, because if it's important enough to you to think of asking, then it's important. It's going to be important to me as your attorney.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Greg, was because most real estate agents, they all say no one should sell for sale by owner. Then they have all sorts of myths about for sale by owner, how it doesn't work out for the seller. But I think I'd say most people should use a real estate, but it can be perfectly fine for some people in some situations to sell for sale by owner. It works great, and they save the money. It just depends on their situation. It's nice if, like you said, if they had maybe sold a few homes and they kind of know the drill a little bit. It's nice if they have time. So maybe that's for whatever reason they have time. If they're totally harried with family and kids and stuff, it's not such a good thing in my opinion. But if they're retired, particularly, so older folks, they're sold a few homes, bought and sold a few homes, so they're familiar with it. They have time now. That would be one major group that for sale by owners is a naturally good fit.
Yeah, and I found that too. I work with lots of retired couples. I work with lots of first-time home buyers too. Really covers the spectrum.
You're working with buyers too of home. Home.
Oh yeah, you bet. First-time home buyers, multiple home buyers. Sometimes I'll work with even a company who purchases real estate as well as part of their portfolio. Yeah, so I have a ton of experience in working with all sorts of transactions. 1031 transactions, complex multi-party transactions. And that's where my law background really is helpful. Answering tax questions, answering complex real estate questions, real estate finance questions.
Could be
as well.
Estate issues, I imagine, when somebody inherits a house and.
Yeah. I also do wills and trusts. So
you do. So all that stuff. That can be complex when they're inheriting. Do they own it? Oh. Should they take it if it's underwater? Don't even accept it. So anyway, that's great. So I got a good feel for where you're coming from and the services you provide people, Greg. So can you talk a little bit about what's happening in the market? I think San Francisco's home prices are nuts right now, but what's it look like from your chair?
Yeah, it's been a seller's market this whole year, and you actually are the perfect person to talk to, John, on this, because you can see on your charts how we're looking at 2008 in that big bubble, and then it popped, and then here we are coming up in 2015, and it's like right there, and it looks just like it, and it's 7 years away, and these things tend to be cyclical. And yeah, I think that if you're purchasing right now, you want to purchase. If you do see a bubble here, you want to be smart about your purchase. Look for a deal, and then plan to, if you are going to purchase for the long haul. So that you're not, so if there is
Yeah.
a dip, it doesn't worry you too much because you're focused on a different type of investment, especially an income producing property, something like that.
Yeah, so what Greg's talking about is I have the case Shiller charts on my website,
Yeah.
realestategecoded.com, and you can go through and just look at San Francisco. There's like 20 some cities in there, and you can look at them even on an inflation adjusted basis. Like the second chart is inflation adjusted, so you get a good feel what's happening to prices. And for some reason, California is really prone to real estate bubbles. I think more than any other state. Maybe Florida could be in
Yeah.
that same area.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's a very optimistic place here in California. You find that in the real estate industry. I was working in different practice areas. Well, I've always done real estate, but a different side of the law. And when I started working on for sale by owner transactions and helping people buy and sell real estate, I realized something amazing, that there's an entirely different language and attitude that's spoken when it comes to real estate. People are happy. A seller is excited about the home that they're going to sell. They're thinking about, meeting their goals and maybe transitioning in a new time in their life, to, a new property. Buyers are excited about the home that they found. So it is a very optimistic field. And I think you also find that with real estate agents, that they are generally, happy, optimistic people speaking the language of positivity. And that's and the thing that kind of brings that process into down a bit is the topics of liability and disclosures. And so there's a reality too to real estate, and a risk that comes with things. And so managing that side of the practice as well, I think is important to bring confidence, answer people's questions clearly and in an objective way. And that's where being an attorney is especially important, because real estate agents and attorneys have different standards that apply to them. Attorneys are required to be objective, which is why attorneys, for example, do not accept commissions on real estate transactions, because then we would have an incentive
yeah,
to
there's a
close the deal.
right.
And that you can't have an incentive to close a transaction. Rather, it has to be you have to provide objective analysis, which I love. I think objectively, and so I'll frequently be on the phone with a client and trying to talk them out of a transaction because I don't feel that it's in their best interest. But oftentimes just their
You would be a
positivity.
really bad real estate agent, Greg.
Maybe so. Maybe so. And John, now
I'm half
you've been
serious.
a real
I'm half
estate agent
serious.
for 12 years, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I stumbled into it from a geeky side. I ended up at a website which I generated leads. I intended to sell these internet leads to real estate agents, but they weren't interested. This is like 2002, 3. And everybody thought I was a real estate agent. Thinking I'm not making any money, but everybody thinks I'm an agent. And they want me to show them homes. Hey, you moron! Just become a real estate agent
Yeah.
and show them homes. So I got in it from the back door through my love of numbers and that. But speaking of love of
Which is another thing that we share in common is we're both kind of geeky about numbers.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's looking at San Francisco. I'm an expert. I think one of the top handful of experts on the Phoenix real estate market. But looking at San Francisco, since I'm kind of unbiased about San Francisco, I can be more objective, even though I'm not a total expert on San Francisco. So my conclusion was, if you have a home and you were thinking of selling it in the next year or 2 or 3, you might consider sooner rather than later.
Mm.
That's just, I don't know what's going to happen to prices, but there's a couple of areas that there's probably more. The upside potential is probably petering out. But like I
Yeah.
say, I don't know. That's just take it in from one geek that doesn't even live in California.
Yeah. Well, the income in San Francisco is so high that
Yeah.
people, they can afford this. And also there's a lifestyle as well to being in these places. You want to be around your family, you want to be around your friends, you want to be in a particular community. And those are the kinds of standard of living choices that people make. And the market, see, to use just a singular term, market is sort of a misnomer. Really, the markets, they're so interconnected and so extensive that there's room for all sorts of niche opportunities. So even if, it could be, a tough sell. And for one, it looks like a tough sell. You might, again, you only have one house to sell. You just need to find the right buyer. So,
Yeah, I did a post recently, in fact, this week, where or let's see, recently, where it was the Weiss Residential Index, and he was talking about
yeah, I saw that.
that
Yeah.
homes could be falling in the metro area, even though the metro, in some areas, or some types of homes, could be falling while the general price is going up. Anyway, it was really intriguing to get the feel that just because the prices are going up in general doesn't mean every home is going up by that amount.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
Right.
Let's talk about let's go into the really geeky, detailed stuff about the contract. In
Oh yeah.
so you're
I love focusing on the contract. Okay,
okay.
this is my thing. So when I first started doing for sale by owner, I drafted my own contract. I
Wow,
just like right from the ground up because I like to do that. I like to see how things work. I like to
wow,
build it.
your geek cred is off the charts.
Nice, yeah. And what I found is that in the process of going through for sale by owner is that people like standardizations,
Right.
or actually kind of a really nice thing about for sale by owner process is that it's really straightforward. We're going to use the standard forms for you. But yeah, when I first started out, I wanted to draft my own contract template, so I did that. But now I use the standard forms, the California Association of Realtor forms, because it's what everyone uses. It's what escrow likes to see. It's what the parties like to see. It's what lenders love to see.
Hmm.
And so, which is key. As an attorney, my goal is to meet my client's goals. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, we saw
and
that during the we would do real REOs. They would come out and basically have an addendum which changed the entire contract, which
yeah,
slowed everything down because now standard contract I know every clause, and at least in Arizona every clause and what they mean. I mean, they come with these huge, basically rewriting the contract. Now I have to spend hours studying it and say where are the bombs buried in this contract from some bank. So that's I totally understand the standardization value.
yeah, yeah, and that's one of the huge values that I provide to a client is being able to analyze their contract in just a matter of minutes, breaking it down for them exactly. Here are the key points. See if there's any red flags in the contract, anything that's out of the ordinary, and then and because an attorney goes to great lengths to understand the client's goals, I can read things with the client in mind. So it's like I'm reading it through like I'm putting on their shoes and reading the client from their perspective, reading the contract from their perspective. And when doing that, I'm able to summarize it for them to give them the clarity, give them the confidence that they need, so that they're making the right decision on the terms. Because it's a big contract, it's a lot of money, and it's not the kind of thing that you can take lightly. And so the major contract terms are you're going to have purchase price, close of escrow date, obviously who are the parties. You want to know the allocation of closing costs. What are the loan terms? That's a key thing. What are the standards of proof that are required for proof of funds? You're going to provide a loan pre-approval letter. When are you have your standard contingencies? Usually in Northern California, we're at 17 days for inspection and appraisal, 21 days for loan approval. And what I do for clients is I break it all down for them.
So let's talk about the 17 days because that's something we don't have in the Arizona contract. I don't think a lot of people do. Uh, Theoretically, according to your contract, it looks like the earnest money goes hard after 17 days. And does that actually happen, or does somebody is that always written out somehow?
No, yeah, it's actually standard, yeah, to keep that earnest money in for 17 days, and then at that point, the buyer can either release contingencies, meaning they're going to go forward with the sale, or they can cancel, meaning that they're going to get a refund of their full initial deposit, and then they just get to walk away.
So the buyer then has to fill out another form saying I want to proceed, and then the buyer's earnest money becomes non-refundable. Is that accurate?
Right. Yeah. But yeah, the nice thing about these situations is that the buyer only releases contingencies when they feel really comfortable doing so. For example, they'll only release inspection contingencies after they've completed all their inspections.
Right.
They'll only release loan contingency after they've got full confirmation from their lender that their loan's going to go forward. It's called a loan commitment letter. And so what I do for clients is walk them through each step and let them know exactly what to expect. And I lay it all out on a nice contract timeline, a schedule. And I've had just a wonderful feedback about how help make the process very standard and straightforward for people.
Well, one of my problems with the Arizona contract is that it doesn't have that 17-day contingency. The earnest money never becomes non-refundable, or as they say, goes hard. And so I'm always worried. This has never happened to me, but I'm always worried that the buyer, when I represent the seller, the buyer is going to flake out
Yeah.
on the day before closing. My seller's already moved out, and suddenly he gets his mortgage guy to say, "Oh, he didn't qualify. You can cancel the contract, get your earnest money back." And my seller's in a that's a huge, huge, huge monetary hit when they've already
Yeah.
moved out and then the transaction doesn't close. It's never happened, but I'm
Yeah.
always worried about that.
Yeah.
And so I love I
And it's
love that
funny.
clause.
Yeah. I had the same experience actually. It's never happened to me. I can't even count how many I've done. There's so many. And I've never had a situation where the buyer lost their initial deposit because you always plan these things so that it's structured and that they're always making the right decisions at the right time. And that if they want to cancel, that they do it within the right time. You just don't make mistakes. And so,
Yeah, that's great.
uh,
Let's
yeah,
go on to another thing that's common. How about home warranties? What's the tradition there? Does
yeah,
seller buy them, or how often do they buy them? What's the
yeah.
standard?
Yeah, in my experience, when you have two real estate agents at the table, then the buyer's real estate agent will buy the home warranty for the buyer. It's kind of like a perk of their real estate brokerage. But when the buyer doesn't have a home warranty, then sometimes they'll ask the seller to provide it, and the seller in a for sale by owner situation will normally request that the buyer pays for it
Hmm.
or they'll just build it into the purchase price. And so, if it's really important to a buyer, then they'll just, compensate for it in the purchase price and then, meaning raise the purchase price. So it's really just a matter of buyer's choice. Well, if your refrigerator breaks, would you prefer to call an insurance company or a refrigerator repairman? In my opinion, home warranties aren't that great, but
It's
I think that they add one of the great things about them, for certain people is that they add confidence. They add
yeah.
that layer of protection and
Kind of the custom here in Arizona is that the seller will buy a policy to benefit the buyer. So
mhm.
that's just the custom here. It's not.
Yeah,
I bet more than half the transactions the seller buys a policy for the
yeah, and,
buyer's
and
benefit.
and the reason for that custom, which has come about, is that um,
We're
the
not in a
seller.
hot market like you guys are too. That's the
Oh
thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what I've seen in this market. Waiving contingencies, huge initial deposits, short close of escrow, much more cash down. It's kind
Okay.
of nuts.
Speaking,
Yeah.
what's your 30 days escrow?
30 days.
I
Yeah.
think it's common. Okay. How about anybody do FSBOs do pre-appraisals to get the price, or is that uncommon?
Um, Not
Since
really.
they don't have
Yeah.
an agent, they're just
Yeah. Yeah. And a forced owner transaction, the most common situation is that the owner will go onto, Zillow, Redfin, and they'll look up the price of their home. They'll look at what their neighbors are selling it for.
oh, that's
And
better. Yeah.
and just look at comparable sales in the neighborhood, and then they'll also take in their own budget, their own calculus as to what they think the property's worth, and then they'll list for that. They'll generally list for a price where they are likely to receive multiple offers. So
Yeah, in Seattle, I just interviewed Craig Blackman. He said that's the tradition there. That's not the tradition here. So he was saying the tradition in Seattle was to price it at the low range of market value to try to get multiple offers.
yeah,
They're in a hot market too, so that's a similarity they have with you. So that you say that's what they're doing. You price at the low end of market value to get multiple offers. That's right. That's
yeah. That's the thinking. With the exception though is for very high value properties, like 2 million plus. Then you price it where you want it and wait.
yeah. When I represent buyers, I hate that because now you're making an offer, you're doing all this, maybe spend money on an inspection for a home that there's five offers, and
Yeah, it's tough.
you're
Oh,
out the
yeah.
inspection, they get disappointed. It's like, come on, what's the real price, guys? So
Yeah,
anyway, so
yeah,
that's inefficient, but nevertheless. Let me
yeah.
see what
Well,
else.
that's part of the finesse that you find with that agents have is that they're able to get some of that inside information by not really inside information. It's more like they're able to gain access to the seller's preferences by talking with the other
Yeah,
agents, and
right.
that's one of the reasons why agents like to work with agents. They get um, they just basically talk about their clients' goals, and which is in their client's best interest because their goal is to gather information on one sense, and then the seller's goal is to provide the necessary information to get offers. So it's positive, but it also um, it takes the matter out of the client's hands, and many clients don't want that. They want to be more in control of the situation, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Good control. They don't want to be taken advantage of. What's the customary earnest money percentage?
Yeah, in a seller's market, we're seeing between 3 and 10.
Whoa.
Uh, yeah, and but usually it's between 1 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do also a lot of transactions for landlords and tenants, where a tenant's purchasing from a landlord, and in those situations, it's just some nominal amount, like between 5,000 or 1%, something like that. In family transactions, you just do it the minimal amount necessary to open escrow, which is $500 usually.
Okay. So that's so how common are landlords selling to tenants? That's
It's
a big part of
surprisingly common.
FSBOs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's surprisingly common. I think tenants, they it's your home. You see the property going up in value. You're making this rent payment every month. You think, wow, we could be putting this rent payment to work for us, and wouldn't it be nice to own? And then there's also the
Saves the seller a ton because he's not paying his
yeah,
agent.
definitely. And I do a lot of those because they do the calculus immediately. Wow, we found each other. This would be easy. Let's have an attorney
Yeah.
document it for
And
them.
the buyer knows the condition of the place very well because they lived there for a
Exactly.
certain amount of time. So their fear is that they're buying a lemon is greatly reduced.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Um, so you're
John, did you know
Spuds.
another common thing between the two of us? So you are the sixth of 9 children.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm the fourth of 6 children.
Oh, I'm sorry. Small family. Your parents were
Small
ill.
family. Right.
I think we have another connection is agriculture. I have
Yeah.
a master's degree in agriculture, and apparently you're a big fan of
Yeah, I
agriculture
live
or
on a homestead.
organic farming, or
Yes, organic farming. It's very, very dear to me. The idea of growing your own food and growing organically to be in harmony with nature. Polyculture, not just growing one thing, but
I love
growing
that stuff.
yeah. Oh, it's fascinating.
So you bought. So where do you get your water? You have a.
Uh, yeah, we have a well.
You're in a well. Okay. What elevation are you at?
About the same as Tuscany, actually, 1,000 feet.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so the things that grow well in that area of Italy also grow well here. Grapes, olives,
Ah,
fig.
that's great.
Oh, we love it. We love it. I have sheep. It's very, very pastoral here, and it's a nice environment to raise a family and just really enjoy the land and be in harmony with the land.
Oh, that sounds like a great situation you built yourself.
Thank you.
Good. Do you have kids?
I do. Yes, I have a daughter.
How old is she?
She is eight
We're
years old.
we're way off topic here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. I love. That's it's being a family man is what really comes naturally to me. I feel like it's one of the reasons that I was put here on Earth to be a dad, and it's the joy of life. There's a balance to our work, and I find that being a dad adds wonderful perspective to
Yeah,
my
that
life.
sounds right. I'm sure you'd be a great dad because you like helping people. So
Yeah.
well, right now I have one of my sons. I have two sons. They're like 25 and 27. And one's visiting. I haven't seen him since Christmas, so it's really nice having him around. And he's going to Boston University working on a PhD in bioinformatics. So
Oh,
he's a
okay. Wow.
geek. He's a geek. What can I
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. I wonder where he got that from.
I don't know. You should see my wife as well. So listen. So Greg, this has been a blast talking to you. So tell me, if somebody is thinking about selling in California, FSBO, or I guess any real estate question, they can give you a call or visit your website. What's the
You
best
bet.
thing for them to do to contact you?
Yes, they can go right to my website. Probably the best way to find me. So it's gregglazer.com.
Great, great. GregGlazer.com and all the contact information is there. Well, cool. Well, this has been I really appreciate it. It's been a blast talking
Yeah.
to you
Yeah.
and
We
bringing
should.
me up to speed on the system in California. And a lot of people, when they buy, they're used to the way it was done in Chicago, and it takes them a while to realize, well, we do things a little bit differently here. Particularly if they come from Canada, the system is quite a bit different in the
Yeah.
States.
That's true.
Good. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah. You bet, John. We'll do it again.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.